This lesson is 8.6.2, synthetic division, so it still is under the topic of dividing polynomials. So our end goal is still the same as what we did before with long division. However, synthetic division is going to be somewhat of a shortcut for dividing polynomials. Synthetic division is a more efficient form of long division. Therefore, it is essentially a shortcut for long division. However, there are some stipulations because it may only be used when the divisor is a linear binomial. So what does that mean? Well, what is an example of a linear binomial? A linear binomial would be something saying we're dividing by x minus 2 or x plus 5. So linear meaning that we have an exponent of 1, essentially we have x, and it is a binomial. There's two terms, so x minus 2, so we have x and negative 2, we have x and 5. It would also work for something like 2x plus 1, like we saw when we did with long division. However, you would end up using fractions, so it may be a little bit easier for you to use long division. However, you could still use synthetic division since it is a linear binomial. However, things that would not work would be things such as x squared minus 5. Yes, it is a binomial, there's two terms, but we have a squared term, so it's not linear, it's a quadratic. Something else would be like when we divided by x squared plus x minus 3. Not linear, and it has three terms, so it's not a binomial. So when we're dividing synthetically, we're looking for things like this, linear binomials. Our first example here is divide using synthetic division, x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4x minus 12 divided by x plus 2. So this works because we are dividing by a linear binomial. Our first step is to find our 0. We're going to utilize our 0 here, and in order to do that, we're solving for x in our factor. So here we have our factor, our divisor, x plus 2. We need to find what that 0 is going to be. So to do that, we take x plus 2, set it equal to 0, so x is going to be negative 2. We want to take that negative 2 and it's going to go all the way to the left on the outside, just like it would for long division. But instead of using x plus 2, we're going to use negative 2. I'm going to set it up like this because this is what I'm going to use every single time. And then instead of using all of my terms, I'm only going to use the coefficient, so our number out in front. So x cubed, my coefficient is 1. 3x squared, I have 3. Negative 4x, negative 4. And then minus 12 would be negative 12. So now that I have this, I want to draw a line down here. And I'm only working with numbers now. So I'm going to bring down my first number. I'm going to bring down 1. I'm going to take 1 and I'm going to multiply it by negative 2. So 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. I'm going to bring that up here. Now I'm going to add these together. So 3 plus negative 2 is 1. Now I'm going to multiply. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. I'm going to add them up. I get negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 2 is going to give me 12. And when I add them up, I get 0. The number that I end with here is going to be my remainder. So in this case, I don't have a remainder. Now, I'm just left with these numbers, 1, 1, negative 6. So what does that mean? Well, I started with x cubed. So when I divide, I'm going to start with what's comes after, so x squared, and these are going to be my coefficients now. So this becomes 1 x squared plus Then I go in descending order. 1x minus 6. This would be my final answer. X squared plus x minus 6 because I have no remainder. Now let's look at another example. This time it says, given that x minus 2 is a factor of x cubed plus x minus 10, use synthetic division to divide. So that means that x minus 2 goes into our polynomial here. So we're dividing by x minus 2, which means we need to figure out what our 0 is, what x equals. So in this case, we're going to have x minus 2 equal to 0, so x is going to be 2. So we're going to put 2 on the outside. That's the number we're going to be working with. And then we need to go and write our coefficients. So it starts with x cubed, so I have 1x cubed. Now I can see that my next term is x. Just like with long division, I need to make sure I account for every single term. And it's not there because our coefficient is 0. So x cubed is 1, x squared is 0, x is 1, and then negative 10. So I'm going to bring down my first term, and I'm going to multiply. 2 times 1 is 2. I'm going to add them up. 0 plus 2 is 2. Multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. Add them up. 4 plus 1 is 5. And 5 times 2 is 10. Negative 10 plus 10 is 0. So I have 0 as my remainder. I started with x cubed, so 1 down from that is where I'm going to start at x squared. So I have 1x squared plus 2x plus 5 as my final answer. For our next example, it says divide using synthetic division. So we have x cubed plus 3x squared plus 3x plus 2 divided by x squared plus 1. It's asking us to divide synthetically. If we think about this, we can't. Well, why not? Well, we can't because if we look at what we are dividing by, this is not a linear binomial. Since it's not a linear binomial, we can't divide using synthetic division. Now we could use our method from yesterday. We could go through and divide using long division. However, synthetic division will not work for this example. And here we have our last example that we're going to divide using synthetic division. We have 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 6x minus 3, and we're dividing by x minus 3. So it's a linear binomial, so we're good to use synthetic division. And we need to figure out what our x is that we're going to use, and we're going to do that by setting x minus 3 equal to 0. So x is equal to 3. So we're going to set up using 3. And then use all of our coefficients. So we go from x cubed all the way down to our constant, so we don't have to use any zeros. We just have 2, 3, negative 6, and negative 3. So we bring down our first number, bring down 2, and we multiply. 3 times 2 is going to give us 6. Add them up. 3 plus 6 is 9. 9 times 3 is going to give me 27. Add them up. 27 plus negative 6 is going to give me 21. 21 times 3 is going to give me 63. And when I add them up, I get 60. So this is not a factor. It doesn't divide in evenly, but when we divide by x minus 3, our answer, our quotient here is 2x squared plus 9x plus 21, but since we have to account for our remainder, we have plus 60 divided by, When we're writing out our final answer, we're looking at our original problem here, and we're dividing by x minus 3. So it's 60 divided by x minus 3. That's what's left over. So this here would be our final answer.